All right, then. Hi, I'm Ariel Grace, and welcome to a spiritual show. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about how to read a haunting. And I struggled with that and how to explain how to read a haunting, but I think I figured it out. So that's what we're talking about tonight. I know you all like all the paranormal kind of shows that I do in October because of the thinning of the veils. That's why I do them, so that you'll practice, hopefully, what you hear about. Okay, so I have a couple of announcements and then we're going to start the show. But I really, it's really cold here. Actually, I think it's cold. You probably don't think it's cold, but I'm cold. And so I do have a couple of announcements, and we're going to get to the paranormal talk. All right. So I'm part of the board of World Awake, and you can check it out at worldawakeinc.org. It is for bridging interfaith and interspiritual communities by bringing everybody together. Okay. So, hey, Rebecca. So, check it out worldawakeinc.org. All right. So, here we go. So, some of the info that I'm going to be talking about tonight comes from Haunted, a psychic story. Next week from 10:27 to 10:31 for its anniversary, it's going to be free, the Kindle version. Check it out, especially if you're interested in different kinds of hauntings and that. It has a lot of good information that is useful. All right. So, and I don't know how I finagled this, but I'm pretty excited about it. Next week, my guests are going to be Susan and Tracy Todd from Emerald Coast Paranormal Concepts. I'm excited. And they're going to be talking to us about the Florida Caverns State Park, which is haunted. And they do paranormal investigations there every October. So if you want to check out Emerald Coast Paranormal Concepts.com, or you can find them over on Facebook as well. So they lead really good groups. I have been with them for the Rest House, and I love going to the Rest House and talking to everybody there, not the people, the spirits, because they're cool. All right. So tomorrow I will have links in the show notes for them and for some of the things I'm going to be talking about tonight too, because um, I just feel like some of these things should be corrected that we're going to be talking about. So um, we're going to be talking about how to read a haunting, and this is good for for everyone. Um, Everyone, especially like, hey, Rebecca, um, especially real estate agents, commercial real estate agents, um, people that are looking for homes, paranormal investigators who are looking for haunted houses to like have tours in and that. So, there are some states that I found that they actually have to disclose that there is paranormal activity in the houses. And these are the states. Okay, so if you sell a house and you know there's paranormal activity in these houses, it's actually illegal. Yeah. So it's Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, and New York. I didn't find any other ones though. I thought that Colorado also had this little thing in it because there's a lot of places in Colorado that are haunted. So, um, and I didn't know that there weren't that many states that could disclose this. I think it should be disclosed because families may buy their dream home and end up in it for like a week or two, or maybe even a month until they start really like hanging pictures and moving things around and stuff. And then their activity starts and it won't stop. So um, make sure this is a handy tip. So make sure that when you're going to go rent a house or buy a house, that you actually spend time in the house. I know it sounds crazy, but even if you have to go, um, like, go with the real estate agent and say, "Hey, I just want to like look at the house again and spend time in it," and I'll tell you why in just a second. Um, but I am going to leave a link in the show notes for it's Zillow. Actually, Zillow put this out. And it's a link to Zillow, what you need to know about paranormal activity or paranormal activity in houses. Um, so that way, if you're buying a house, uh, be prepared, right? um, So, the reason why I want to talk about this is because lately I've been having a lot of information coming to me, like emails and other people asking me, like, how can I tell my house is haunted and what can I do about it? Because there's a lot of people that will clear your house. Um, they will clear your house and be able to clear the spirits out of your house. I do that. Sometimes I can do it remotely, not often though. So I'll refer you to somebody if I know somebody in your area. I'll refer you to that person. It's always good to have a team come in and investigate it and debunk anything that's happening in the house. Um, and there might be crazy things happening in the house, and maybe you have a chandelier and the chandelier moves. But when you turn the heater on and you turn the air conditioning on, the air might be pushing the chandelier and making it move. That's just an example. And there are other little things too, like spirits love electricity. You want to have the electricity checked in your house. Make sure it's running right. Have a real electrical person come in and check your electricity, especially if you're having electrical problems. Once you've debunked that, and you can see either you are having electrical problems or you're not, then you can go from there. So things that you can do to debunk a lot of stuff, go through it and really look at the house, look where your vents are in the house, um, look at your neighborhood. You might be on an old grid system, like in Florida, they're updating the grids there. And so a lot of times there's a lot of brownouts or um, just you lose electricity um, because they're updating the grids down there. So if you're living in an older neighborhood, your grid might not be as up to date as everyone else's. You want to check all that stuff before, calling a paranormal investigator, right? Okay. So when you're uh when you're going to rent or buy a house, you do want to actually spend time in the house. And if there's some weird sounds or anything like that, ask the real estate agent about it. There is this man, and I've interviewed him on this show before. His name is Keith Linder. And Keith Linder went to rent like his home. He found this home and he really, really liked it a lot. It was a beautiful home, and it was like his dream home. He walked in, he was like, "All right, this is it. This is great. We've made it." And he had a girlfriend at the time, and they were in love, and it was all good. And they signed the lease papers actually in the home with the real estate person or the owner, whoever was um, renting the house to them. And after the real estate agent left, they heard giggling in the house. And the both of them kind of went, huh, and they didn't pay attention to it. So Keith Linder lived in the house for several years. And And the first months of him living there, weird things were happening in the house. Like he would come home and all the cupboards in the kitchen would be open. He would come home and like a plant wouldn't be in the same place that it was when he left in the morning. So he put cameras up in the house to watch what was going on. And you can check him out on YouTube. He documented everything in the house. And he also wrote a book. It is called The Bothell Hell House Poltergeist in Washington State. And you can find that on Amazon. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes tomorrow when I do the blog. That way you can check out the book. He's actually written 3 books. He's great at documenting, writing and videotaping. So he would come home, or he actually had alarms set, like if there was movement inside the house. And his alarms on his phone would be going off all day because he would look at the cameras from his phone and he would actually see like all the cupboards opening and the drawers being pulled out and the silverware, the drawers just being dumped, you know. And this happened for years. He lived in the house for years because one, he wanted to see why this was happening. He was new to this. He didn't know anything about it. And two, he didn't want somebody else to rent the house and get scared to death because he actually talked to previous renters and they also had problems in the house as well. So, again, you can check him out, Keith Linder. He's on YouTube. You can see the video. It's real. It's amazing what he went through in this house. And you can read the books if you want. The books are it's all very much documented. You know, it's very clear everything that he did. He did leave the house, he moved out, and he moved into an apartment. And some of the some of the beings that were in the house that he was living in followed him to his apartment. So he's still haunted. All right. Hey, Iris. So that's why you want to make sure, like, if you're buying a house in an older neighborhood, even in a newer neighborhood, you know, check and see what the history of the land is. Because Keith Linder's house, the house that he lived in, was a pretty new house, you know, but they checked the history of the house. I'm using him as an example because it's pretty extreme what happened to him in that house. It's crazy. And they did some historical research and found out that the house was built, I think, on Indian land, and that is the kind of stuff that he was having problems with. Hey, Selena. So, uh, so because of that, you know, there was other things that were attracted to it as well. He had huge poltergeist activity happening in that house. It was crazy, 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 crazy. Like tornado would go through the house every day, and he would have to come home and clean it up. So anyway, check him out again, Keith Linder. All right. So if you want to know an extreme thing that happened. So again, if it's a place that you want to stay in for a long time, do some research the land, research the house. Make sure, like, you know the history of the house. Who lived in the house beforehand? What happened to the house? What happened in the house? These are all things that you need to ask question. You know, you need to question, especially if this is your dream home and you want to move in, you want to be there for the rest of your life, you know, and everything. You want to make sure that house is like clear. Or if there are spirits in the house, you can live in the house with the spirits. They're cool with you. Okay? They're helpful. Hey, Deb. So, so when you are, these are all handy tips for before we even get into like how to do this, okay? How to read a haunting. Um, how to actually read a haunting. Now, it took me like 3 days to figure out how to describe this to you all because each haunting is different. But I'm going to give you some basic things. One of the things you can do is stand outside of the building that you're going to be going into and look at it, really connect to it. It's like yesterday, I went for a walk in downtown Greensboro. That's where I live now. And so I want to get to know the area. And I was walking downtown Greensboro, and there are some beautiful buildings down there. And I'm just like, oh, I'm looking at the buildings, I'm connecting to the streets. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I'm not going in that building. Like, but I was connecting to the street and I was connecting to the buildings and I was just looking at them. And I'm like, wow. So you'll feel like maybe a sense of like, don't come in here. Or like, look at me. Look. So there is a hotel in downtown Greensboro. It's called the Biltmore. It is haunted. And I found it yesterday on my walk and I was looking at it, and the feeling I got from it was very conflicted. Like there was some despair there, but there's also on the first floor, I think where the lobby is, was it exuded welcome. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, there's some things going on here that the humans want us to come in and feel welcome, but the spirits are like, yeah, this is my place. Come on in if you want. Let's see what happens." So it's like a challenge, right? So you want to, whenever you're wandering about aimlessly like I do, just feel everything out. So when I'm going into a place, like when I went to the house, before I even went in the building, I stood outside the building and really connected to it. I really wanted to connect to the house. Um, I kind of limited what Susan and Tracy told me. I didn't go on their website. I didn't really investigate it that much before I actually got to go up there and see it, except that I knew that they were excited about it. I knew it was haunted. So I just stood outside just to feel the feeling of it. And so, whenever I go into a haunted house, I can smell the ghosts. It's a musty, dusty smell to me. And so when I walk into a haunted house, that's how I really know for sure that it's haunted, because I can smell it. It smells different, and that is actually a Claire. So, um, just like when you go into a place and there's residual smell of like maybe like perfume or cigar smoke, it's like that. It's ethereal. And so um, when I smell that smell, I usually close my eyes and I look for energetic pathways. And that's how I'm able to go into a home or a place when it's daylight, because I'm not looking for sounds, I'm looking for energy. And all energy makes a path. All of us put little footprints down and we make like a little map of where we've been and all that stuff. That's why sometimes when I'm doing readings, I tell my clients, pull your energy back to you, because we leave this little print all over the place. So always pull your energy back to you every night. But spirits don't do that. They leave like they're a mess. They leave energy prints everywhere. And so a lot of times you can feel or see these energy footprints or pathways or threads. And so you follow the thread, the strongest thread to that source, and that's how you're able to start talking to probably the spirit that has the most energy in the house. And that way you can start clearing, talking to the spirit and getting them into a place where they might leave. Okay, look at Iris put something in the comments. Let's see. My niece had their brand new home on grounds that used to be an orphanage. When they were digging, she saw A small bottle and a construction worker gave it to her. Her husband once saw a little boy in their bathroom mirror, and for a while their dog was afraid to go upstairs. I'm talking about a huge home they have. I'm glad that when I used to dog sit, I never saw anything. Yeah, it probably didn't, they probably showed up. And this is a lot of times spirits will show up in a house because they want you to acknowledge them. Like they're there. Say hi to them. I had a shop in Bedford County up in Virginia, and it was haunted. And every morning when I walked into the shop, I would open the door and say, "Hello, everyone. How are you doing this morning?" Because there were five spirits that actually lived in the shop. And so, a lot of times, if you just acknowledge them, they're cool with you. Like my partner at the time, she would not acknowledge them. And so she had all these crazy like markers and she had this printer because she made t-shirts and she made mugs and she did all kinds of stuff. And so like she would come in, she would totally ignore them and her desk would be a mess. The markers would be out all over the place. Whenever she went to print something, it wouldn't print the right colors, no matter what we did. And I used to tell her, "Hey, you need to like acknowledge them. Just say hi. It's cool, man. Don't worry about it." But she wouldn't. So one day I went to go drop some stuff in the mailbox and I came back and she's sitting in the middle of the store with a blanket around her in 80-degree weather. And there were two children spirits standing on either side of her just looking at her. And I'm like, you need to acknowledge them so they'll stop bothering you. So a lot of times that's all you need to do. Um, If you want them to leave, I've given you lots of handy tips on that. You can use salt. You can have a priest come in and bless your house. You can start removing things from the house. Like Iris said, they found a small bottle. Well, if they found a small bottle and if there was a spirit attached to that bottle, the spirit and the bottle went in the house, you have something in your house. That's why you always have to be careful what you bring into your house. Be aware of what's going on, right? So, um, one of the things that I love going on paranormal investigations, okay? And the reason why is because I love all their like techie toys that they play with during the investigation. Don't tell any paranormal investigators I call them toys, but they are. And they're really cool because they assist with communication for those people who are not clairaudient and you can get some really good yes and no answers. Reading a haunting is like that. It is there is a lot of hypothesis stuff and spirits can fool you. They'll tell you that, whatever you want to hear just so that they can play around. So you want to authenticate stuff. You want to make sure that it is actually who you're speaking to. And you may ask them to do some different things or ask them questions about their life. And if you get the right answer, you can keep going. You can do a breakdown on it. So you want to like if you are looking for a new home to live in, and like Iris, say her house was built on an orphanage, it sounds like, they only saw one spirit, which is fine. And the boy probably just wanted to be acknowledged. But if they get any more activity, like if they start hearing children laughing or they start hearing like residual conversations, they start doing things like that. And that might even be going on all around them. And it's just maybe not loud enough or it's just not going on when they're not home. So, Iris, you might ask, your niece if she has some cameras on the inside and just film the house and see what happens while they're not there. And then she'll know if the house is really haunted or not. So, if you cannot smell the spirits, and if you cannot see or hear them, if you're not ready or you don't want to, but you're curious about it, you can use some really cool techie toys that the paranormal investigators have. They have, you can use recorders, they have REM pods. There's this new thing, it's called Ghost Tube, and it's an app, and you can download the Ghost Tube app to your phone, and you will actually hear the spirits speaking. They will speak. And so, and it's very clear too. It's not, there's not a lot of noise. There's no noise in the background. You hear the actual words, which is really cool. They even have a virtual ghost tube thing where um, the spirits will actually make an image of what they look like or an image of where they are, which is really cool too. So they do have, huh? Selena's gone on some investigations. So, but the best thing that you could do is use a recorder and just turn the recorder on so that you can collect EVP. And a lot of times a spirit will answer a question. You can also use flashlights, like the kind of flashlights that twist. And you can ask the spirits questions with the flashlights. No is dark, light on is yes. And so that is easy for them to manipulate, and they can do that for you. And that way, too, you can get some answers like, why are you here? Like, do you live here? Did you live here before? Yes, no, you know. Did you die here in this home? Is this your home? You know, those are questions, simple, straightforward questions. Don't get complicated with them, just like with the pendulum. You don't want to like confuse the pendulum. You don't want to confuse your answers. Be direct. Okay. Okay. So and you might have to really listen to your recordings with like headphones or something so that you can hear what the spirit is saying. If you get a spirit that says get out, you have to claim the house. So what you do is like you stand in the middle of the house and you're like, hey, this is my house. We can like live here together, or you get out. And if they don't get out, bring somebody in that can help you clear the place. Okay. Make sure that you read reviews. Make sure that you get somebody good that is not going to charge you an arm, a leg, your eyeball, and your ear to clear your home. Okay. Because that's no good. And sometimes homes, like I talked about last week with the lady in New Mexico, it took like 6 months to clear that house. It had to go out in layers. You know, it really did because the house was so old and because it was so hoarded. So we want to make sure that we do a good job. And I have I have handy tips in this book. I know it's not thick because I'm pretty direct and to the point in these books. I don't beat around the bush and give you a bunch of flowery words. Not going to happen for me. All right. So if you need a digital recorder, you can go on Amazon and get it. If you need flashlights, you can go to Walmart and get them. There's all these different ways that you can do it that are practical and that don't cost you a lot of money, and you're able to get answers for yourself. When you're reading a house, take pictures of all of the house. Take pictures of the front of the house, the sides, and the back of the house. And the reason why I say this, and take pictures during different times of the day, morning, noon, and night, because you want to see what's going on morning, noon, and night. You may get a picture of a spirit in the morning, but not at night. You might only get that picture on a Sunday morning, you know. So these are things that you have to consider because there's even like anniversary hauntings. And so sometimes those anniversary hauntings are once a year, once every 5 years, whatever the anniversary was, you know. Like I think in Gettysburg, they were doing it was an anniversary for something, and it really ramped up all the hauntings. And the reason why it ramped up the hauntings was because all of these people were going to Gettysburg to celebrate these anniversaries. So the more energy, the more thought, the more energy, the more it's going to be the more haunting activity you're going to have, paranormal activity you're going to have. So, a paranormal investigator, a good paranormal investigator will come in and they will give you everything that they have found. They will not say that it is haunted. They will say, this is unusual. This is what we found. It's up to you to decide what you want because they're scientists. They're developing hypothesis. And it's really cool to go on investigations like that with a paranormal investigator team that is like that because you get to see a different part of the haunted house. You get to see things being debunked and you get to see evidence or what they collect and use as evidence. Okay. Okay. So making sure that if you do have like an indigenous haunting, um, find out who the indigenous people are that live in your area and have them come look at the house or your property and see what they say about the property because they may have a way of clearing out the indigenous people that other people don't, right? So you want to consider everything as you're buying or renting a home. And if you can't figure it out remotely, wait till you get to the area and then go and actually look at the place yourself. Okay. Because the neighborhood might be haunted. It might be just an old neighborhood and you might just get visitors moving through all the time, especially if you have like an old movie theater or an old, grocery store, an old something or other out there. It will, that is haunted because a lot of movie theaters, old movie theaters, um, like the Grand Ole Opry is haunted. That one auditorium in Shreveport, totally haunted. But a lot of those spirits that go to visit there, they're just visiting. They're there for the show. I'm sorry your internet is offline, mom, but you made it. All right. So when you're really reading a haunted place, remember to like before you go in, say a prayer, get yourself centered, get yourself grounded so that you can really feel the feeling of the home and really listen for any kind of weird thing or weird feeling that happens in the home. Because the real estate agent will bring you back or let you go in however many times you need to. They want to sell the house, you know. So, and you can feel it. I mean, if you feel cold or warmth in the house or weird temperature changes in the house, that's something to pay attention to too. Be present in the house. Because Keith and his girlfriend, when they signed that lease for that house, they had only looked at it. They really hadn't spent any time in the house. But when they heard that giggle and kind of, hmm, they should have like ran out of the house and ran over and said, here's your contract back. Let me have my money back. Yeah, maybe the spirits were messing with it, mom. So, um, when you go on when you go on haunted investigations, ask for tips from the paranormal investigators. If you're going on haunted tours, listen to what the tour guide is telling you because they have lots of handy tips too, but they have their own way of speaking. And so when I go to do an investigation, I go through, and usually one of the investigators goes with me when I do the first walkthrough, and they have a recorder and they record me as I'm going through and talking about each room in the house, what's in there, what I'm picking up from it, and as we walk through the house. If not, then I either take notes or record on my phone what I'm finding in the house. That way I can go back and write a report on it. I don't like to have any information before I go into a house because if I do, it might like sway me. So um sometimes you can't help it though, because you're going into a place that you already know is haunted, but you don't know any particulars. So I try not to know anything particularly about the places that I go into. So, some people have asked me about activity that is, malevolent, that is not good, that is heavy, that is angry, that is, not good. So that type of activity, like Keith had, he actually had people come and bless his house. He had people come and try to clear the house. He had all kinds of stuff, and the house would be quiet sometimes for a couple of days, and then it would start up again. So if you get a place like that, move out, move move out of the house because it's not worth your frustration and the fear factor, right? Um, if you're getting like dead animals in the house or outside of the house, if the house starts to smell and you are very fearful in the house, have a Catholic priest come and bless the house and clear the house because they have a process that they do, and they can clear they could get they have this whole ceremony that they do, and they clear the house, and it has to be a Catholic priest. So for those of you who are not Catholic, you know you might have to give them a donation to do it, but it would be worth a donation to do that for you to clear the house. And honestly, in most cases, a spirit either just wants your attention or they want to go home. They want to leave and they can't figure out how to get the heck out of this in between place. Most spirits will like reside in the house with you and maybe even might be helpful to you. I prefer not to live like that, but other people might. It just depends on who you are, you know. So, um, so you want to make sure and use these handy tips that I'm giving you tonight. But educate yourself as much as you can about the area in which you reside or the place in which you will reside. So then you know what to expect and be present while doing your walkthroughs through any property that you're considering buying or renting and leasing. Okay? That way you stay safe. Spirits can push you and there's some people that get scratched, pinched. There are spirits that can do that. Yeah. I've been pushed. I've been pushed a couple times. But the last time I was pushed, I was out at Haunted Willow Farm, and Al had just had the barn torn down, and that barn was haunted as all get out. And so the spirits were not happy about that. And I was walking towards Al, and one of them actually pushed me. And so I went forward and then I pushed back and I said, Get out of here. And so, yeah, they can do that. You don't want to, if you're feeling, usually if there is like, if you get pushed or you're going to be hurt, you're going to feel the feeling of like, get out, get away. You'll have that intuitive hit, like, don't move, don't go in there, don't, leave. So, because they don't want you there. That's why they're doing that. They're like, get the heck out of here. This is my place. I don't think spirits can move you from one room to the other. I've never heard of that. If you have an article or something, let me know and I'll read it. But I've never heard of that before. I've heard of people getting shoved, pinched, scratched, um, like pushed, and that whole that that whisper, that heavy whisper of "get out." Whenever I hear that, I'm like, yeah, okay, gotta go, because I'm a chicken, and so I'll leave. I don't have a problem. I'm not even gonna like stand there and argue. I'm gonna be like, okay, cool, I'm out of here. So I've never heard of a spirit being able to move somebody in their sleep. I've heard of sleepwalkers or people getting up in their sleep and following spirits around, but I've never heard of a spirit being able to actually move a person like that. Yeah. I'm trying to think if I've ever heard. I don't think I've ever heard of that. Sleepwalkers, though. A sleepwalker might do that. So if you have an article, send it to me, Selena. Send it to me at gangofgirlsinc@gmail.com. I'd like to read it and figure out what the heck. So I'm always curious about stuff like that. I have seen things fly across rooms. Like I've seen candlesticks fly across rooms. I've seen like cups being slid off a table and plates being thrown around. I've seen that. That's not fun. I mean, it's interesting to see like on video, but when you're like in the room and it's happening, it's not fun. And I can laugh about it now because it's been years since I've seen that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but bodies, no. All right. So I'm glad that you guys like this show. I want you to join me next week because Tracy and Susan have some really cool information about the caverns in Florida. And hopefully, we can coax a couple stories out from them. And Tracy can give us his paranormal ideas, his paranormal investigator ideas about it, and I think it's gonna be a fun Halloween show. They always have really good info when we have them on, and I'm really looking forward to it. So please join me next week for that. And in November, we're gonna be doing the thankful, thankful all of November. So I'll be starting to put that kind of stuff up on social media. Hopefully, you'll be able to see it and comment on that too. All right. So if you're watching and you haven't liked the video, wherever you are on social media, please like the video. It helps the algorithm gods say, hey, we need to show this to other people. I don't know how it does it. It's a science. Anyway, that would be really helpful for me. If you haven't subscribed to me on YouTube, subscribe to me on YouTube because I do psychic tips of the week or of the day, and I try to do a couple of them a week. I've been kind of slow at that lately. All right. So have an awesome week. Have an awesome week. And remember, keep your heart open and aligned with the energy of love. And I'll see you next week. Bye.